Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on family reunification. How to bring your parents or siblings to the US legally. My name is Maliha, and I will be your host for today's session. Family reunification is one of the most powerful ways to strengthen immigrant communities and bring loved ones together. However, the process can be complex, and that's why we are here today to break it down for you. Before we begin, one major myth we often hear is that any family member can be brought into US as long as the sponsor is US citizen. However, the family reunification follows certain guidelines and eligibility which depends on your relationship to the family member and your immigration status. Good thing today is I'm joined by a renowned US immigration attorney with a successful law firm in Chicago. His practice focuses on US immigration, particularly naturalization and immigration, green card services, immigration litigation, family immigration, employment immigration, consular services, and visa applications. He brings a wealth of experience and expertise to immigration, cause without a doubt. Please welcome with me, Attorney Omini.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Omini, for joining us today. To our beloved audience from various social platforms you are streaming from immigrationquestion.com. It is about to be an exciting session, so grab a notepad and let's dive in. Attorney Omini, we understand the US immigration system, especially the current administration, places a high value on family ties. As a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident, you have the opportunity to sponsor certain family members for immigration, right? So, can you begin with a brief overview of family based immigration?
Okay. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Thank you.
Family uh, reunification is a very important part of immigration, uh, one of the major sectors besides the employment based immigration. Uh, to be able to bring your loved one to the US, uh, a, you, your loved one and you yourself must be qualified uh, to be uh, a petitioner as person who files the paperwork for your loved one. You are known as the petitioner, okay? And your loved one you're trying to bring into the country is known as beneficiary, okay? Uh, you have to belong into two categories. It's either you're a permanent resident or people we refer to with green card. You have a green card. Uh, you could sponsor your loved ones, or you must be a U.S. citizens. Okay, now let's just address those two categories because the requirements are different, the qualifications are different, and whether you can bring somebody into the U.S. is also different in terms of timeline, how soon you can bring them in, and what you're required to have as the petitioner. Okay. Uh, for the U.S. citizens who are usually given the first preference, okay, you can bring your unmarried children who's under 21, your spouse, if you have been married but your spouse are overseas, you want to bring them into the country, or your parents. Those three groups of people are considered to be what we call immediate relatives. Okay, visas are usually available for this group of people, meaning that the waiting period is the shortest of any group. All you need to do is file a petition to bring them into the U.S. Uh, a the standard practice and the form we typically use to file the paperwork is what we call Form I-130. A, some people would call it I-130. The name of the petition, of that petition, the correct name is Petition for Alien Relatives. Okay, and the reason why we use the term alien relative is your loved ones are alien to the country or foreign to the country. Uh, there's is not a pejorative, and it's a common name. So I-130 is what you need to complete, detailing all the information for your loved ones, whether it is a parent or your children who are under 21 or your spouse. Okay. The difference is that in each application or each of these three categories of people, uh, your relationship between your relationship to these individuals must be defined. If it is your children, well, you will have to provide a birth certificate and any documentation that shows you are related to them. If it is your spouse, you are required to produce one of the major documentation, which is certificate of marriage, that you are married to this individual. Okay, and then if it is your parent, well, you are required to provide your own birth certificate that links you to your parent. Okay. Nowadays, there are two ways to do it. Okay, filing I-130 for these three group of people, and generally, the agency which is handling it is the USCIS. That's the summary of the name. It stands for United States um, Citizenship and Immigration Services. Okay, uh, you can file that document, the I-130, now in two ways. You can either file it by mail, but the agency has taken a major step in the last few years. You can file it online nowadays. And the people are encouraged to do online, particularly because the filing fees for online filing is lower than the mail in a petition. So it is faster. You uh, input all the information, all the biographical information on your loved ones and yourself. A, by the time you submit the petition online, you can actually get your receipt of filing. So I usually urge people to go online if they have all the information ready to go. Okay. Uh, Besides this group of people, we also have a situation where you can file as a citizen for your brothers and sisters. Okay, these siblings are the last, or what we call the fourth preference of family reunification in the U.S. The the waiting period for them are extremely long. Uh, they may take anywhere from 10 to 14 years, depending on the country you're coming from. Four countries in particular seem to uh, experience a long waiting period for brothers and sisters. They are China, India, Mexico, and Philippines. The waiting period between those four countries vary. Um, so, besides this second group I just mentioned, uh, for the permanent resident, that is, people who have green card, you can bring your loved one in as well. You can file for your spouse, and you can file for your minor children, that is, children under 21. okay, as well. The waiting period for them is a little bit different from that of the citizen. Citizens get the first bite, meaning they get their visas is always available. Okay, so it's not unusual. You may have to wait a little bit more if you're a permanent resident. Okay, and you can also bring as a permanent resident. You can bring your married. Okay, you can bring on married adult children. That is, people who are a little bit over 21. Okay, but they're not married. Okay, um, a third category that we all, or what we call third preference, are those people who are married adult children of U.S. citizen. So if you're a U.S. citizen, but your children is more than 21 years old and has married, you can still file for them, but they are considered to be third preference. The waiting period for them is as long as a little bit longer than what you will get. You're gonna get if you have parents, spouse, and unmarried children. Uh,
Right.
Not as long as that of siblings. Okay, siblings are dead last in the group of uh, loved ones you can bring into the U.S. Okay, the how do you can become eligible? Well, it's just the relationship to these
Correct.
individuals.
Right, Mr. Omini. Like you mentioned, I just would like to have a question in here. Like you said that what is the eligibility, right?
Okay.
So according to you, is the first step in the family reun what is the first step? So I believe the first step in the family reunification process is filing a petition with the USCIS, right? So
Yes.
who can file for the I-130 form? Like you mentioned before, like it should be brothers or sisters, etc. So who can be petitioned for, and what are the supporting documents needed to accompany the form?
Thank you. That's a great question.
Yeah.
To the form you have to file, that, like I said earlier, is I-130, petition for alien relatives. Okay. Uh, the petitioner has to be, if we're talking of a U.S. citizen, somebody who's already a U.S. citizen. Okay. Uh, the documentation is you have to show the relationship between you as the petitioner and the beneficiary. Okay, relationship is what matters most. A, um, and in that case, if it is children, among the documentation we're looking for, if you're sponsoring your children who is under 21 or even more than 21, depending on the category they belong to, you must, number one, show us your own documentation that says you are a U.S. citizen. And the proof of that in most cases is your certificate of naturalization that shows you are a U.S. citizen. Second, we will need a birth certificate of the person you are sponsoring, like of the children you are sponsoring, that says you are the father or the mother of this individual you're bringing in. Okay. A, a, Once you have those two, then the rest is among the documentation we want is you must show that you can sponsor these individuals into the U.S. Okay. The standard practice is what we call finance. You have to declare your financial information to us, to the agency. You will file a form which we call uh, I-864. Okay,
Right. Right.
I-864. We detail your information, but if your loved one is, like I said, uh, if your if your loved one is overseas, you file what we call I-134. Yeah. There's a
Okay.
difference. The there's a slight differences between the two forms. Okay.
Right, right. Which brings me to the very next question, Mr. Omini. I think when you're talking about there's a slight difference.
Mhm.
So I believe it's something to do with counselor processing, with adjustment of status. If you could
Yes,
walk us through two main
absolutely.
pathways, yeah, as a relative can obtain a green card.
Yes, that's the essence of where I'm headed, because your I-130, the purpose of your I-130, if your loved ones are overseas, is actually you are applying for green card for them to enter the U.S. Okay, when they go, once the USCIS consider the I-130, they will forward it to an agency known as National Visa Center, which is part of the State Department. It coordinates all the visa processing in the U.S. embassies and consulate around the world. Okay, a NVC is the short brief uh, National Visa Center. Then National Visa Center, we take a number of steps.
Hmm.
One, they 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 will confirm that they've received the approval of your uh,
Okay.
I-130
Mm-hmm.
from the USCIS, and they
Mm-hmm.
will then urge you to take steps to
Mm-hmm.
start processing what we call immigrant visa. That is a green card, but it's going to be overseas. That's what we known as consular processing.
Correct.
Okay, meaning that you are processing it through the consulate. Okay,
All right.
okay. The in the preparation of the I-130, the standard practice is you will have been asked, and we urge you to urge every petitioner to do this. They will ask you which consulate or American embassy you want to be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is in essence you declare the city and the country. Okay, saying I want to be processed from the Lagos, Nigeria, or Tokyo, and that's the interview is going to take place. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the valuable insight here, Mr. Omani. Like, moving on to our next question. Before I could move on to our next question, this is just for the audience, whether you're just tuning in or have been with us from the start. This is immigrationquestion.com live streaming. Immigrationquestion.com is transforming how immigrants connect with experienced immigration attorneys. Ask your question for free, and we'll connect you with a verified attorney on our platform. We like to call it the meeting place for immigrants and attorneys alike. For attorneys, immigrationquestion.com is your chance to grow your practice significantly. Sign up today and start boosting your firm's growth. So, for the audience, this is just to let you know you can give me a call, you can give us a call while we are live, and you can ask your questions to Mr. Omini, who is a very experienced attorney and who has immense amount of knowledge. So the number that you could call on is 516-703-3483, which is right beside my banner. You could look at that, you can give me a call, we can take your questions live while we are with Mr. Omini. Which brings me to the next question, Mr. Omini. We understand one of the ways of being up to date with visa availability and priority date is through monthly visa bulletin, right? Which is
Yes.
released by the Department of State. In
Yes.
simple terms, like if you could explain what is visa bulletin and what are priority dates.
Yes. Thank you. That's a good question because on on monthly basis, the Department of State, the Consular Affairs Division of the State Department issues what we call the visa bulletin. Visa bulletin just basically summarizes what is going on in terms of uh, uh, fee available visas, uh, everything listed category by category. Okay, you we have for the family visas, we this what we call um, they kind of categorize them into four groups. Okay, the we call it first preference. or they may call it F1. A first preference, it belongs to um, the loved ones of U.S. citizens, okay, particularly unmarried children, okay, or parents. Okay, those are considered to be what we call them immediate relatives, immediate family relatives of the
Right.
U.S. citizen.
Right.
The waiting period is the shortest for this group
Okay.
because we don't delay them.
Mm.
And the standard practice is if a visa is available, you could tell when they will be considered. Uh, the only thing that needs to be uh, connected with this group is just the USCIS approving the I-130 and forwarding to the NVC. And if they are within the first preference, they tend to be uh, connected first, or their cases they got priority. Okay. The second group is we call it second preference, but the second preference is broken into two groups. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
these are the uh, permanent residents, relatives of
Citizenship.
permanent residents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the first that tend to get a address within the visa bulletin is what we call the um, a second preference F2A. That's just a name for it. And F2B.
Right.
F2A, you generally are uh, spouses of the permanent resident and
Mm-hmm.
minor children who are under 21. Okay,
Okay.
their cases get addressed first. The second group, the F2B group, are the unmarried children, uh, uh, but adult children who are like people who are 21 years plus. Okay.
Right.
And
When you're talking about the married children and adopted
yeah,
children, spouses,
exactly.
right?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Right.
The third group, which we call third preference, are
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. citizens married adult children. Okay, these are generally people who are like 21 plus. Okay,
Right.
the and the fourth, which is the last fourth preference, is the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens.
Yeah. Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's very informative, Mr. Omini. Before we could move on to the question and answer, the Q&A, would
Okay.
you perhaps like to share a success story from families you have reunited through the process? One of that stands out for you from your years of practice thus far?
Yes, I can, without naming name, I had successfully, in about a year,
Right.
brought into the country
Mm-hmm.
the parents um, of a U.S. citizen. Okay, two of them, both husband and wife, they are in their 80s, and they were brought to the country. We filed the first preference that I mentioned. Okay, he,
Right.
because their daughter
Mm-hmm.
is a U.S. citizen, we were
Mm-hmm.
able to bring the parents in within
Right.
a relatively few months.
I mean, it would be feeling so content to you when you do such things, when you're reuniting the families. That's the best thing that you could do, and that's what immigration question does as well. We reunite the attorneys and families that are looking for attorneys like Mr. Omini, experienced and with expertise. So
Yeah.
if you are, yes, if you would like to reach out to Mr. Amini, you can perhaps have a consultation with him. And for reaching out to him, you can obviously contact us as well. So, whether you're just tuning in or have been with us from the start, this is again immigrationquestion.com live streaming program. Immigrationquestion.com is transforming how immigrants connect with experienced immigration attorneys. Ask your question for free, and we'll connect you with a verified attorney on our platform. We like to call it the meeting place for immigrants and attorneys alike. For attorneys, Immigration Question is your chance to grow your practice significantly. Sign up today and start boosting your firm's growth. Attorney Amini, for our platform that caters to the immigration community, equally provides an environment where lawyers can grow through their business and increase their visibility, right? So what do you think of immigrationquestion.com? Is there anything that you'd like to let us know? Mr. Amini. For anyone who's just joining us, you can contact us. You can give us a call on 516-703-3483. We can take your questions live and we can address it all. For people who are just tuning in, this is immigrationquestions.com live streaming program. Immigrationquestion.com it's transforming how immigrants connect with experienced immigration attorneys. Ask your questions for free and we'll connect you with a verified attorney on our platform. We like to call it the meeting place for immigrants and attorney. For attorneys, Immigration Question is your chance to grow your practice significantly. Sign up today and start boosting your firm's growth. We had Mr. Amini here today, who addressed us about the various issues on how family reunification might be difficult, on how to bring your parents, your siblings to the United States legally, how U.S. citizens how the process for the U.S. citizen is entirely different, how the process for the green card holders is entirely different, right? So we've talked about it a lot. We've talked about previous topics as well in regards to employment-based visa. We also have a new petition that recently started, that's parole in place, which we've previously spoken about. We have our audios recorded, like the audio shows in the Spotify. You can go and search borderless immigration, borderless talk by immigrationquestion.com. If you'd like to stream it, if you'd like to stream the recorded session, you can listen it in Spotify simply by searching Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. You can even listen to today's session and previous ones on the go, where we've discussed about employment-based immigration, where we've discussed about a parole in place, where we've discussed about asylum, where we've discussed about various other issues as well. If we have any questions from the audience, we'd be very happy to take it. Also, for anyone who's just joining, this is immigrationquestion.com live. So, since we were talking about the reunification, the family reunification, like Mr. Omini very well mentioned, we usually have um, two types of categories here. That's your U.S. citizen, and then we have our green card holders. So there are two categories that can sponsor the U.S. citizen and the green card holders. However, somebody who is a U.S. citizen is always more beneficial here because they get the timeline for the U.S. citizen is a lot lesser than that of the green card holder. That's how it is. And besides, we also learned about visa bulletin. We also learn on how it is different, how the timeline is going to vary, how the timeline for spouses is different, how the timeline for children is different, and how the timeline for spouse like brothers and sisters is different. We're getting a call. So, that's what we've discussed today. We've also discussed about consular processing and adjustment of status. on like how consular processing is different and how adjustment of status is different. Consular processing is again for someone who's not in the United States. Consular processing is someone who is outside the United States, and yet we can have the person sponsored. Adjustment of status, on the other hand, is for someone who is in the United States, maybe on a visa, etc. Right? Besides, why should an attorney join immigrationquestion.com? Certainly, for visibility, you any attorney who joins immigrationquestion.com gets the visibility with the audience, with the right audience. The right audience gets to choose the right attorneys. We have all experienced attorneys here in the immigrationquestion.com. You can visit our website. You can find a list of attorneys from your preferred state, and you could reach out to them. And for attorneys, you can reach out to the clients who are actually genuinely looking for your help, right? We have different experienced attorneys who've come on our show live, like experienced attorneys, award-winning attorneys like Mr. Gehi, last week Mr. Sonulal, attorney Sonu, attorney Suraya, a lot of attorneys who've attended our show. It's been an honor to have them here. Mr. H.K. Gandhi, Mr. Omini, who was with us in the show today. Um, Mr. Rahul, who also happens to be one of the senior law clerk. And we have Mr. Amini back. Thank you so much, Mr. Amini, for joining us back.
Yes.
So yes, I was just briefing, yeah,
Yeah.
on what we've discussed, just summarizing. So like my previous question was, for a platform that caters to the immigration community and equally provides an environment where lawyers can grow their business and increase visibility, what do you think of immigrationquestion.com as a platform?
Yes. It's a Blackboard. This is a welcome news. Uh, I really appreciate that you guys are bracing the trail or expanding the trade. If we can, you can call it what you want, but it is very encouraging, and it should be a good source for information for people who attend the webinars or play it back later on as well.
Of course,
One thing I find very encouraging is that, well, maybe because I've been in the business for quite a long time,
of
because
course, of course.
in the past, we don't even used to have a live exchange like this, a webinar. But over the years, uh, the industry has developed,
Of course,
uh, and then we have new energy, new people coming in and bringing something like this into the business. I'm always available to share my knowledge and opinions
absolutely.
and answer questions. I've been to your website, and
Mm-hmm.
intend to go there more because I notice I can even answer some questions there
Of
myself
course, yes, of
and leave
course,
some questions for some of your visitors. And I hope
absolutely,
everybody makes use of it.
of
Uh,
course,
you'll be a good addition to the propagation of immigration laws.
right.
One thing your website is likely to
Mm-hmm.
also make a lot better
Mm-hmm.
is that in the past,
Mm-hmm.
because the immigration law changes so quite often, okay, you guys are on top of the news.
Right.
Uh, you shouldn't have any problem in getting those news out. Um, Changes in these areas of practice of law is
Mm-hmm.
very, very fast because
Right.
it is driven by politics and
Right.
laws and everything. So uh, forms change quite often. The pricing for filing changes. There's a constant one thing or the other that constantly goes on in the industry. I'm glad to welcome you guys to what you're doing. and I
Thank
wish you luck.
Thank you
And
so much, Mr. Amini. Thank you so much, Attorney. It's an honor to have you here. We have a lot of questions coming from the audience. Please keep your questions coming in. Our special guest will be answering them shortly. We'll open the floor now for question and answers. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we'll try to address as many as possible. You can even call me, like I mentioned before, on our number that's 516-703-3483. The very first question from Mr. Methu is: can I start family sponsorship for my sister while she is on a tourist visa visiting me here? Or does she need to return to home first?
uh, your sister doesn't need to return home first. But at the same time, since she's here on tourist visa, my advice has always been you can file the paperwork, but you have to go back. Okay, because if she overstay her
Mm-hmm.
tourist visa, she will be
Mm-hmm.
out of status,
Right.
and even the ability to adjust here is not necessarily there. Okay, so why stay i- um, in the US? If I may explain that a little bit, because people will say, well, how do I file reunification of my family?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we spoke at length today
Mm-hmm.
on consular processing. That is,
Right.
people are coming from overseas, people are here and are filing to uh, to adjust. We do what we call adjustment of status, but they must be qualified to be able to do it. The first preference category that I mentioned earlier are usually the parent, the spouse, and things like those people may be able to do it successfully. Uh, but if you do not have a non-immigrant visa or you only have a tourist visa, which will last for a few weeks or months, uh, it is better you can file it, but you need to leave.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the valuable insight, Mr. Amini. Your expertise is really appreciated. We have another question coming in from Alondra. My parent from Puerto Rico has medical condition that requires a long-term care, and I am their primary caregiver. How can I expedite their green card process under the humanitarian grounds?
Okay. A lot has been said about this expediting process, but the green card don't necessarily grant or have any room for expediting other process. Okay, uh, people have argued, but the USCIS has been very, very reluctant in granting expediting requests. Uh, but even though including uh, on the basis of humanitarian grounds that somebody is sick and cannot um, uh, leave or should not leave.
Right.
Um, what we usually advise people is if you have a medical condition, look for uh, a, a different route, okay, not through the green card. You can be in the country to receive medical treatment, okay. Visas are usually processed for that purposes, but they are considered non-immigrant visa. They are not immigrant visa, okay. And if your doctor allows the treatment to continue, you may be able to extend it on that medical condition grant. But you are more or less like as if you are a visitor receiving medical treatment, not because you are applying for green card.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Omni. Thank you so much for your valuable insight. We have another question from Mr. Shaw. I received RFE on Wednesday from USCIS. What should I do first?
Okay. RFE is known, a full definition is request for further
Right.
evidence. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you get an RFE, it is much better to consult. Uh, if you cannot handle it by yourself, consult an attorney who can read it, understand it, because in most cases, RFE goes to asking of specific set of information from the person who received it. The agency sends it in and say, okay, we want you to explain X, Y, and Z. Okay. And that's what you should attend to. Don't just give them a generalized description that doesn't address the issue they're asking for. Because a lot of people will say, we got an RFE, we replied, but the application is eventually rejected. Well, look at the answers you give to your RFE. If you can't do it by yourself, consult a professional to take a look at it. And they maybe in the process of asking for documentation or other sources of information, you will be able to address the question very well. Not all RFE leads to rejection. If you answer it correctly and you do it right, you may actually get an approval for the petition you filed.
Wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for the valuable insight, Mr. Omni. Coming up, next question from Camila Martinez. I filed a petition for my brother 6 months ago, but have not received any updates yet. What can I do to check the status of the case? Thanks.
There's a little bit of um, right now you won't be able to do much because you need to be able to, if you have a receipt of your filing, you'll be able to check what we call case online status uh, on the US's CIS website. They will give you a brief information about it. Uh, but if you don't have not received a receipt that shows your package has been received and you have a receipt number, okay, that we allow you to be able to connect that case to your brother. You may not be able to do a lot, okay, but if you have a receipt, um, you can check case online, like I said. But at times, there's nothing wrong. You have uh, con- customer service uh, toll-free number on that receipt. You can call and provide them with all the information they're going to require. In most cases, they will ask about your name as the filer or the petitioner. They will also ask for your receipt number so that they can link it up with what the information they have in the system. They also will ask for the date of birth of your brother. In most cases, they always, because they want to know the biographic information of your brother. In essence, um, they will ask just about every information to confirm that you are the actual petitioner. Okay, you're not just somebody who's looking for the information, because they are supposed to protect the integrity of the information they have in their system before they will tell you any update. Okay. Um, and I also noticed that this is a petition for your brother. Okay. 6 months is relatively short period of time. And like I described earlier, your brother uh, is, quote unquote, a, the fourth preference group in the reunification of family. The waiting period for siblings is extremely long. They are in years. So 6 months is just a beginning. Okay. You look at the country where you're from, and you should have a brief idea. If you look at the visa bulletin that we've talked about earlier on, we show you if you're from four major countries that I mentioned: Mexico, China, India, and Philippines. The waiting period in those four countries could be as they are in years, like as many as 10 to 14 years. So uh, look at those information, and you can check the information on regular basis. They will be willing to share it with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Omini, for your valuable insight again. Our next question coming up from Celia Shand. Hello, immigration question. I want to sponsor my married sister and her two young children. Can I do this with one petition, or do I have to do separate petitions applications?
Um, you can do it in one petition, but you have to come. You have to list all these uh, family members together. Your married sister and her two young children. Okay, uh, but you don't need to have separate
Right,
for them.
right.
When I take the word young children to mean somebody who are with children who are under
Hello.
21 years of age.
Yes, just bear with me. Right, Mr. Omini. We have a caller online for immigrationquestions.com who'd like to ask a question live. Yes, Mr. Femsis, you can go ahead and ask your questions. I believe Mr. Omini is listening to you.
You're asking me to ask a question?
Correct. Ask your question, please.
Yeah, so I'm currently working in the States under a TN visa. I was thinking of doing something on the side, like a side hustle. Been in contact with a company. They do logistics. They like a trucking company, and they have something like an investment where they asking me to buy a truck, and they will hire that truck and do their business, and by end of the year they will just provide like a share or profit from whatever the truck is doing, and give it back to me. So I was like wondering whether that's something that I can do without impacting or affecting my current status.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, Um, Mr. Memphis. Mr. Omini, were you able to get the question, or do you want me to repeat?
Not totally. He
Okay.
mentioned that he's in
Yes,
on a current visa. What kind of visa is on?
he's currently on a TN visa, right? And he wants to do a side hustle. So he reached out to a couple of truck companies, and he's trying to probably get H-1B. Is that what you want to do, Mr. Memphis?
It's like I'll buy the truck and they will use it for their business, like for trucking and everything. And they're just gonna provide me with some of the profit by end of the year. It's like an investment where.
So he's talking about investment. I suppose E2 visa here, right? You wanna ask questions in regards to E2 visa. And you're currently on TN visa, correct?
He- TN
Yeah, I'm
visa.
on a TN visa. So what they asked me to do is to buy a truck, and they will use that truck for their own business,
Right.
and they're gonna share some of the profit with me
Correct.
by at the end of the year.
Right. So he has a truck company who wants him to buy certain trucks, right? And then he gets to have the profit by the end of the year. He's
Yes.
currently on TN visa. It's like an investment. So,
Mhm. There's nothing wrong in investment. Okay. I understand that there is on TN visa, which is the what we call um, out of NAFTA visa between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Okay, if you are, there's nothing wrong that stops you from investment. Okay, invest in in a business or anything. You um, It's not a violation of your TN that you invest. Uh, You might as well invest your money on Wall Street or buying stocks, and you earn profit from there. The commercial activities that doesn't necessarily lead to immigration issue just because you are investing in some kind of business. They pay you at the end of the year or quarterly basis dividend for your investment. That's fine.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Omini, for the valuable insight. I suppose Memphis has had enough insight in regards to the same, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Memphis, if you're listening to us, you can reach out to us on our website, or you could call us. And if you would be interested to talk to Mr. Omini there, you can let us know. We will connect you with Mr. Omini. Right? Um, Moving on, let's before we could just wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you for our guest who judicially handled the topic the noble way. We cannot wait to have you back on the show, sir.
Okay. I, you're welcome.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Mr. Amini. It was an honor having you here, and it was a great interactive session. We hope this webinar help shed light to family-based immigration. For the audience, remember while the process may seem complex, there are always options, and it all begins with the right steps. Visit our website at immigrationquestion.com to connect with experienced immigration attorneys who can guide you through your unique situation. Should in case you missed any part of this session or would like to listen all over again, like I mentioned before, catch us on Spotify. This live stream is being recorded and will be live for listening on Spotify. Simply search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com and listen to our today's session and previous ones on the go. See you at our next session at the same time every Friday, 2:30 p.m. EST. We should have on board another seasoned attorney who will be doing the justice to the topic: how to secure a green card through investment, like the very last question that we had from Mr. Memphis. Attorney Gloria Roy Bowden will be joining us next week. Please make it a date with us. Until then, stay informed and empowered.